Hello there, welcome to my channel. Recently one of my fellow E-Team members, Vladimir Kostek, came over here to the West Coast, and we ended up getting together and spent quite a bit of time talking about E-Ink devices and each other's channels and kind of related things like that. And we put that to record, and this is broken down into two pieces. The first piece is on Vlad's channel, and that link is in the description. But this is part 2 of that series. Now, just one technical note. I think if we had the opportunity to do it over again, we would have put our cameras in a little bit of a different orientation. We had a good audio source, but we kind of lost that, so we had to rely on one of the cameras for audio. So it's not technically the best work that either of us have done. But I think it's good enough that you can get a sense of the conversation. The technical issues don't get too much in the way, and I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. So why don't we go ahead and jump right into part 2 of that discussion. All right, welcome to my channel. I'm here with my good friend Vlad, and we're going to continue our conversation that started on his channel. So how you doing?
Pretty good.
Great.
Thanks for inviting me in your home.
Welcome to dark California.
Yeah. I know, yeah, 5 o'clock now, it's just pitch black.
Yes. Unlike, I'm sure, where you come from, where it's totally different.
No, it's probably 4:30 over there.
All right, okay, very good. Very good. So I've been dying, so we obviously have worked together recently on the E-Team videos, and what's unique about you in particular and your channel is that you're much broader scope than the rest of us. So the rest, well, maybe not as much Roderick. He's a little broader as well.
Yeah, I think he's been venturing out a little.
Yeah. So can you talk about the scope of your channel and why? What has inspired you to do that?
Sure. So I think kind of like you were mentioning in part 1, where you spend all your kind of like tech money in these devices. That's kind of what I do. But like broader tech, like I'm really into, say if I had to limit it to like maybe 5 things, I'm really into e-ink tablets, of course, then cameras, laptops, and computers, and then audio devices, and then probably like lastly like video game stuff,
Okay.
peripherals, things like that. But there's so like what I was saying is I spend like the majority of my money, like disposable income, on just random pieces of tech. So at a certain point I was like, well, I should, when I buy a piece of tech, I watch like all the content on it and consume it before, so I know really what I'm getting into. And so that's kind of why I started my channel, because I was like, I feel like I could add to this and just kind of review the stuff that I've been using for a long time already. And I think for me that makes the process of reviewing it a little less daunting, because I don't have to like immediately just look at it and be like, break it down. I slowly just learn over time. And then for footage also it's good because like, I was traveling this week with this, and then I just randomly, I was like on the plane, I took a little clip, and then I can kind of like compile that in a way that's, I've used the device for a long time, and then I've like compiled a lot of footage from it already.
So just to be clear, so your buying habits happened first, and then the YouTube channel came later to supplement. I got
Yeah,
you. Okay.
There's products at home that I like probably haven't even opened that are like, I have so many, like I have like closets full of just tech. So it's to a point where now I'm like, okay, I need to figure out like what I actually need and what I should sell, because I can't just keep all this stuff. So
right.
So yeah, I basically spend all my money. It's like I always have like little wish lists of like, I'm interested in this, but then sometimes I do research and it like seems really cool, and then I don't end up buying it. Like an example is like the Rabbit R1, which was like those the buzzword of AI things. It's like once I started researching it, like I love the company that designed it, Teenage Engineering. Like I have a synthesizer of theirs, but then once I started like realizing, I was like, what am I really going to use this device for? Is it just going to be another thing that ends up in my closet? And the ultimate answer was yes. So I'm trying to be more selective now about what I choose. But I feel like I typically am selective in some senses, because I do a lot of research before I buy the device. So, but I was like kind of like experimenting. If there's something like a new technology in something, then I'll likely end up buying it, because I just want to try it and get my own opinion of it. Because I think half of my enjoyment of the process is like the actual research. And then sometimes you buy the device and you're a little underwhelmed by it, and you don't end up using it as much. But that's kind of where my channel started from. Was just trying to share like the things that I really like with people online.
Got it. Does what you do professionally intersect with your channel at all, and what you talk about in the channel, or is that completely separate?
So I deal with kind of finance and photography on the side.
Okay.
So I think the photography aspect does kind of intersect, where like video was a natural progression of the photography. So, I mean, I probably started messing around with video like 10 years ago when I got my first drone. It was a 3DR Solo. It was like, you know how there's like the DJI Mavics and stuff, which are like more of like the iPhone. It's like those are the common ones. 3DR was like kind of like the Android one back in the day, where it's like you had to install the gimbal, you had to install the GoPro and all this stuff. And when I started messing around with that, I was like more sold on video. I was like, this is so cool. Like, you know, just being able to fly and like have these cool like aerial shots of places you visited that are a little different, and it just gives you a third person perspective of stuff. And that was kind of when I got more into video.
Gotcha.
I actually meant to review that device, but I think I procrastinated so much on reviewing it that I never ended up reviewing it, because by the time I was going to review it, it was like 3 years old already. You know.
Quick drone story. So I had a drone. I wasn't particularly adept at maneuvering it, and I was trying to get shots of my roof. And foolishly, I was flying it on a very windy day, and a wind just took it and flew. And it's somewhere in the neighborhood to this day. I have no idea where it
got
went.
blown away by a
Just
gust.
blown away. I had no chance to control it at that point.
I would
or
say to
watch
people
it
that
leave.
are like trying to get into drones, it's like it's not a matter of if you're gonna crash, it's a matter of when you crash.
Right. And how hard.
Yeah.
Can you survive it?
I mean, that's how you end up learning, is by crashing and stuff, right? It's like, I mean, to be fair, they're also getting much better now with the cameras and object avoidance, like
automated.
avoidance.
Yeah.
So it's harder to crash now, but it's still possible.
Gotcha. So when you're looking ahead to the next year, do you see the channel shifting in terms of priorities and what you're covering, or what's that looking like for you? Or do you take it as it comes?
I think like kind of as the tech comes, I'll still keep reviewing that stuff. But I think, I mean, if you look at my channel now, probably out of the last like 40 videos, like I don't know, probably 85% of them are on Eink.
Okay.
Just because I think I personally, and you're in the same boat, I think it's such a useful tool to organize like whatever you're doing, your life, your work, your business or something like that. That I like, kind of sharing. And also like drawing, so I think they're pretty invaluable for that. But I do. There's certain things I want to do. Like speaking of drones, like I bought a simulator on the PC, and so I'm like gonna be kind of trying to get good at drone flying for FPV.
Okay.
So like that's something I'm gonna do. I've built. I actually haven't shared much on the channel, but one of my like passions is the intersection of woodworking and technology. So like I've built a stereo record console out of like wood with all the electronics inside. I built a computer into my desk. I built like an acoustic sound panel, and so those are things like I filmed it all, but I just like it's such a daunting task to like go and edit it. And I think I wanted to get better at like video editing to represent those projects well. And so like that stuff I'll share on the channel at some point. And then one of my goals in the near future is to go to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show.
Yeah.
I've never been to that, and it's been like a lifelong kind of goal.
Is that in Vegas?
Yeah, it's in Vegas. I think it's the first week of January. So
right.
Hopefully I could do it this year. We'll see if the timing works out. But
that's exciting.
That's just like kind of like one of the pinnacles of things I want to see, because it's always the newest tech coming out there, and like in the kind of, I think, world in general. There are some big other like tech shows in the world, but that's like one of the bigger.
Certainly for the United States as well. Yeah. Interesting.
Have you ever been there?
No. The one thing I kind of regret is that I'll just say it, that I never went out to see E3 in its heyday.
Okay.
Because
because
that
it could shut down, right?
It did, yeah. It's not. I don't even know if it exists, or if it does, it's in a completely different format.
Yeah.
But that used to be the event. That was the gaming
Yeah.
mecca of the year, and
I'm sad I never went either.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come out with another one at a certain point.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, we could come back and
Yeah.
and maybe you'll be here in San Francisco.
Yes, I mean, You guys are one of the tech capitals of the world, right?
Yes, well, so far. We'll see how long that lasts.
What sort of games are you into?
I go off and on in games. The last game I really got into was Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Okay.
Which have you heard of that one?
No, I don't think so.
It's amazingly well written. It's this kind of puzzle game. I won't go into all the details of it. I think I played it on the Switch.
Okay.
But I think there's a PC version as well. But it's just a really good puzzle game.
Nice.
And I actually
makes
used.
you think a little bit.
It did. I actually used the Go 10.3, and so I would, because you had to take notes.
Oh,
as you went
really?
Along. It was perfect for that. Yeah.
You had on the side while you're playing.
No, exactly. Yeah. It's like, what was that code? Okay.
That's awesome.
And then, and then you
That
try
reminds me of, did you ever play the game Myst back in the day?
a little
PC.
bit. Yeah, I have played some of it.
That was the one where you had to remember everything, and everything was related to something.
Yeah, I never went
complex.
anywhere.
It was so complex.
Yeah. But yes, I do remember that. I wanted to focusing a little more on Eink.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to talk to you about this kind of issue, and we'll use the Supernote situation as an example, but I don't think it's the only example. And for those that don't know, what happened or is happening with Supernote is that there is some content editing going on in the subreddit by Supernote. So someone might post, say, a favorable review of the Go 10.3, and then that post disappears. And this is actually kind of been an ongoing thing. It was a big issue maybe 2 months ago, and it seems like it's kind of kicking back up again. I don't know.
I think just because things are still stalling, right?
Yeah.
So it's started to resurface a little bit.
So I guess what the question I'd like to ask you about this is that I understand why people are upset, and I understand why Supernote does it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's an interesting tension here between, obviously from the user point of view, they're looking for a transparent company that you can partner with and you can be open and talk and not have your stuff removed.
Yep.
And Supernote's this small company trying to hold on to their market and trying to control the narrative to the extent they can about their device, and they don't want to see competitors on there. So I kind of see both sides of it. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I certainly see both sides. I've only been edited, I think, once off of the subreddit for a post. I think I shared my video where I put Feel Right 2 on my Remarkable, which in my mind I was like, this is, I get that it's talking about the Remarkable 2 a lot.
But they sell Feel Right.
But they sell Feel Right 2,
Right.
so I'm like, okay, and I guess if you watch that video too that I did, my findings were it's not for everyone, right? You should not just willy-nilly just put Feel Right 2 on, because there are some things that minorly suffer from it, but in general, for me, I like it, right? So I'm very open about this is what you get, but in theory that could help sales of the Feel Right 2 if someone was willing to do that and spend the $50 that it costs to put it on their device. So that one I didn't really get. I was like, okay, I get that it's talking about the Remarkable 2, but there is some financial gain for Supernote to be put on the map by someone that maybe had a Remarkable, even I guess it's on the Supernote subreddit, so maybe not that, but to get back to your point more, I think it's kind of like a fine line where when you realize what Reddit is, the mods for a subreddit, and I've seen this through not just Eink stuff, just all over Reddit, that a lot of them have rules, right? And so there's 9-10 rules on one, and if you break those rules, sometimes you won't even get to post the article. It will be immediately flagged, and it won't even show up on the feed, right? So I get that aspect. I just maybe they're just trying to minimize the amount of, because people are gonna, in the comments, they're gonna mention other devices and stuff, and so maybe they're just trying to minimize the amount of conversation it starts with another device. In my mind, but I don't particularly agree or disagree with it. I'm kind of neutral. At the same time, I do see a lot of people just complaining where they're I'm waiting for the device, and I get that. They've talked about the chasing the carrot and how they misled people for a certain amount of time, and so they've kind of had this strife with their audience or their fans, essentially, but. It seems like it's an issue of just the amount of like complaining, I think. And then when people complain, they normally reference like, I've waited so long, so I just bought a Booksco 10.3.
Oh, maybe those are the type of posts.
Maybe that gets flagged.
Yeah,
They're like, I can't wait any longer. Like I just bought this. Or some people maybe the they put a post of like something about that, and then they just start talking about other devices, and that I kind of get because it's like Supernote's trying to fix their relationship with the consumers, where they can share stuff but not like give tons of intimate detail about their device. But at the same time, some people feel like the subreddit should just be open, and I also get that too. But I don't know. I think it's a tricky situation, and like I said, my kind of final view is like I don't agree or disagree with it. I think it is what it is. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it almost doesn't matter what they say. When the A5X2 comes out, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
So
the people that really like Super are gonna buy it.
Yeah, I never got into the A5X2 because they had this wonderful subreddit. Like that was just a nice to have kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, I guess they do have their roadmap or whatever.
The Trello board.
Yeah. But even then, that's not super critical for me. I'm not bothered by it. I do understand why people are bothered by it, so I'm not dismissive of that argument. But I don't know. It's let's go to Vywoods for a second,
sure.
and as an example here. So when Vywoods first started coming out and doing their Kickstarter campaign, I mean there was a lot of talk and chatter, particularly on Reddit, about are they frauds or whatever, and that turned out, of course, not to be true.
Yeah.
Or scam, I guess, is the phrase that
sure.
people use.
Yeah.
But and so having seen that, it is so hard for a company to compete with all the competition that's out there.
Yeah.
And then you're getting attacked, in this case unfairly. I understand the impetus for companies to want to control that narrative, seeing when it goes wrong. So I'm not sympathetic to Supernote for that, but I'm forgiving.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they're in a tough spot, but then again, like, they're also stalling a lot, right? So it's like...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they're stalling, they're just...
No, they're not stalling.
They're taking their sweet time, right? Like
my take on that, and who knows for sure. I still think it's coming out soon. Like,
I agree.
I think we will see it this year.
I think we will too.
Or at least get the orders in. Like, people will be able to order it and then it'll ship. Like,
yeah. I think my take from the bits that they've said and from what we know, I just think they got to... They're a small company, fundamentally. And I think they didn't understand what they were getting into with the A5X2, however, and I'm sure most of the story we'll never know because it's all behind the scenes, whatever. Because I don't think any of this works in their favor, right? The delays don't work in their favor. Just all the things about it. So I just think that they just...
So one caveat about that.
Yeah, please.
So like, let's say like the color soft, for example, right? Like they launch it and they think they're ready, but then something's actually not really ready on it. Do you not think that could hurt them more if they launched the A5X2 and then there was some small issue that was overlooked?
Oh, as opposed to delaying.
Yeah.
Right. No, I don't think that the delay, with one exception, I don't think that the delay will hurt them that much. It'll hurt them a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a ton of...
Because there's a gap right now, right?
There is a gap, and
like,
people
with this coming out,
right?
No Remarkable 3, which is the equivalent of the A5X2.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, I think we talked about this already, but just like the Booksco or the Vywoods AI paper, those are like the two if you want something like new, those are the two you're considering.
Yeah,
it's just black and white.
Particularly the Go. I think the Go and Supernote are natural competitors, less so with the Viwoods.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably right. It's probably Viwoods, but I call it Viwoods, so I'm going to keep saying
Okay.
it. Everyone else says it your way, so you must be right.
It's a Chinese company, so you can maybe you can call it whatever.
It's
you want.
probably nothing. It's probably Woodsby or something. But I don't know anything else to say.
Yeah, but yeah, I think just in terms of like, you want like a high PPI, black and white monochrome screen. Those are your options, right?
Right.
Like yes, you can buy a Remarkable 2, but and actually this is something interesting we talked about too. I think I had put it in our notes, but like when I had talked to Kit a long time ago, he had mentioned, because I did a whole video on Remarkable 3 and what I wanted to see, what Kit wanted to see, and what Brandon wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I just like interviewed them and kind of got their perspective. And one of the things Kit was talking about was A4 color, and that essentially is what this is, right?
Right.
It's not A4, but it's kind of that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So he nailed that one, and I think he was talking also about like them having more regular releases. So maybe now having a release every year, whereas up until this point, we've seen 2 releases from Remarkable in 7 years, and the last one was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. But he made the good point of where it's like, the shareholders and stuff, more regular releases bring more income regularly. But then again, they also do have the Connect subscription, which is a huge cash cow regularly, right?
Yeah, I think that in support of his point, I think they wanted the subscription to be the business model, and they got tremendous pushback on that.
Because it used to be like $8, right?
It was a lot more.
And they had to cut it back to $2.99.
Right, and before that it was free.
Yeah.
And then Books does it for free. So it really was a black eye on their reputation. I mean, they're doing fine, obviously, but I think they really wanted that to take off. So it makes sense, though, that because it didn't, because they cut it down to the lower price, that maybe they would focus on, moving hardware now. But
what do you think? Do you think that like they could do something every year? I mean, clearly, I think the Remarkable 3 has to be next, right? Like, because there is, like we're talking about, there's that stopgap right now in the 10-inch size.
Yeah, they were still selling Remarkable 2s at like before the Pro was announced. They were selling like 8,000 copies a month, I think, on Amazon.
Okay.
Which is really healthy.
Yeah.
The Go was selling 500 a month.
Yeah.
To put that into context. So I don't know. I'm really not sure. It's definitely possible they'll start doing hardware on
the other option would be something in the like 8-inch realm, right? Like a small.
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard that rumor. But oh man, what do you think about that? I don't know. That would take off. There's no question that in the marketplace, 10 inches sell better than the smaller screen.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, my thoughts are that a Remarkable 3 would come before a smaller device.
Yeah.
But the smaller device could be in the near future if they end up going that cycle of doing something every year, right?
Yeah. Right.
Kit almost, even at one point, was thinking that maybe every 6 months, but I feel like every year is more.
6 months for a device.
Yeah.
From Remarkable, that's aggressive.
I think it's
relative to
because also they have fall releases, right? And typically,
yeah.
That's when historically every Remarkable device has launched. The 2, the 1, and the Paper Pro.
Yeah.
So I could certainly see. But now I'm thinking would next fall be wouldn't that be too long for a Remarkable 3? That's a whole nother year to just have a Carta 1300 10.65 if it's the same panel as the A5X2 and the V-Woods, right?
Yeah, I mean,
is that too long to wait, or
I don't think so. So my take on that is the people, and we kind of touched on this in the last video. The people who are really into Remarkable are not necessarily the people super excited about the Go.
Yeah.
Or the most cutting edge technology. And the Remarkable 2 is 4 years old.
A lot of them bought this.
Yeah, so, and a lot bought that. So
because they wanted the front light.
Right.
Color.
So if people have been willing to wait 4 years, and those that didn't buy the Pro, why couldn't they hang out for another year or two?
True.
Yeah. I don't know. It's part of the problem in this conversation is that everything related to sales is opaque. The only reason why I even quoted numbers is Amazon just shows
They
up.
disclose
And that's just
that.
the U.S. market.
Yeah.
That's not even like, anywhere else.
It is really hard to get a grasp on like the number of units they're selling.
You have no idea.
The profit margins, like everything. Right?
Totally. There's only, to my knowledge, of all the major players, there's only 2 publicly traded companies, right, where they release financial statements. Kindle's one of them, and they just bundle everything. So you have no idea Amazon. Is
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah.
And
the
other
Kindle,
one,
like we were talking about earlier, e-readers, note takers, it's all the same.
it's all bundled in. Even that, I think,
And
is bundled to other product
do
categories.
books go into that too? Like,
I don't remember.
because that is part of the Kindle,
Yeah.
right? So maybe, yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Not
you don't
sure.
have much insight into it. Right?
No, and then the other company is Eink, and the parent company,
Provider.
and they won't even they have their I think they list like their top 3 vendors, but they mask who that is.
Okay.
So you have no idea who they're selling it to. It's all very opaque, and it's hard to say what's going on. So it makes it hard then to predict what are they doing or what makes sense for them from a business perspective.
Yeah. That is interesting, but
going back to this idea of, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No.
Well, going back to this idea, because I don't want to focus too much on SuperNet. I think other companies, and maybe more so the Chinese companies, and I don't think that's a commentary, by the way, that they're from China. I just mean sometimes there's a language issue that comes with the communications and how they kind of interact with the Western audiences. So have you seen, so we talked about the SuperNote issues, have you seen other companies done things that have seemed kind of questionable in terms of how they're interacting with their public?
I personally haven't.
Okay.
I guess when I interacted with VWoods a good amount, I reached out to them a little after, and I was like, hey, I'd love to. The main reason I wanted to try the ad paper was just I wanted to see Carter 300.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the only reason I wanted it.
It's worth it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so
right.
It's like it's compared to like my Remarkable or my Nomad, which is like I think Carter 1000. It's just I'm super excited for the A5X2 because of the screen.
Yeah,
right.
Me too.
And having that screen with Feel Right is gonna be awesome. But that was the reason I reached out to them, and I think that was shortly after Kit had made that video about like scam reviews and the truth, and I think that was centered around VWoods, and he was very open about disclosing his email process and like how they interacted with him. And I think I talked to them after that, and I had a live stream with him like later that week or the week after, and I showed him my email. I was like, they were very like, do what you want with the device. This is your creative control, and can't I would never take a product from a company that would be like, oh, we want to see X amount of videos about this, and we want to see it beforehand, and that defeats the whole point of it, right?
But you reminded me though, because that's one of the things I think that fed into the scam narrative. Because VWoods initially was going for people who were doing more of, I would say, promo pieces.
Yeah, and I think a big thing around that was they didn't give Voya one, right? Or they didn't.
There was a strange interaction, and again, I wonder how much was the communication barrier between them. But yeah, that was a factor for
So to answer your question though, I didn't have really any communication issues around just a language barrier.
Got it. Yeah.
But I haven't interacted with. I mean, I've had Big Me try to send me devices. They tried to send me the B751. Back in the day, they tried to send me the Galley, which I didn't want because I was interested in it, but I don't know. It just seemed like a very unfinished product, and I was like, I don't want to waste my time on that.
You were right.
Which, I had no clue at the time, but it ended up being kind of a disaster. To the point where they almost didn't even release the device after, right? I think they sold a little bit, or...
Yeah, I bought one off the market. So they did the Kickstarter, and then I bought one when it came out. And then they did a couple updates on it. They did one update that was good, but other than that...
But then I think the hardware wasn't very long-lived. They stopped selling it shortly after.
Yeah.
But, and then I haven't really interacted with books. And I think Penstar is a Chinese company, correct?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that. So the device that they've brought to America is like the Hanon, I think, which is Chinese.
Okay.
But I don't know if Penstar itself is American that licensed their product or it's a subsidiary. Yeah.
I got you. That's one company that reached out to me, and it was very much same terms as the B-Woods, just like do your own thing and kind of.
See, so
we just want to send.
They reached out to me as well, and this was before Roderick had done his review, so it's roughly that time frame.
Sure.
So 2 months ago,
Yeah.
I guess. And it was a really weird interaction, and I look
it?
back. It was, yeah.
Did it feel like it was some language barrier in there?
It does now.
Okay.
Now that I look back on it, I think that's what it was. And I took it. I'm very sensitive about interacting with companies. Like, and Avoya actually did a great layout of his terms, which are almost identical to mine. And so basically, I send that back to people and say, look, if you're cool with this, we can do this. Otherwise, and that conversation didn't give me that warm and fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it was the communication. I don't think it was actually.
Do you do a lot of cold emailing to companies, or do you wait more just?
I don't reach out to. I think I originally, when I first started, I reached out to a couple of companies like Pocketbook. I think I'd reached out to, and they just ignore my email. So I said, fine, I'll just buy what I want. And then some of the smaller ones reached out to me. BigMe reached out to. So unfortunately, this is where we encountered some significant technical issues, and we had to basically take this break and then restart. So it's kind of abrupt, our apologies for that. And when we restart, which we'll show in just a moment, we're going to go off in a new line of questions in a different direction. So again, apologize for losing the train of thought that we just left, but we do have some good conversation to continue. And so this basically becomes a segue for the end of our conversation. So let's dive back on in to listen to that. So am I to understand this correctly that you've only reviewed, so you're in the Eink, but you've only reviewed one books device?
I've reviewed no books devices.
None. You've
only talked about them.
Oh, okay.
I've only experienced one. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, back when I was reviewing the Remarkable 2, like many years ago, I think I was talking about the competition, and in the competition section, I talked about the Remarkable 1 and the Onyx books, and I think that was like the original Note series. So I bought one just to try it. And then I was like, this is not really for me, the Remarkables for me. So that was the only books device I've tried, pretty much.
Wow, okay, so you between Remarkable and books, you really were more in the Remarkable camp.
Yeah, but you have to remember, this was also books like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 4. Just because I thought, I was like trying to think of when I was doing my review of the Remarkable 2, I was like, what is the competition here, or what are the other options? And so I was like, if you want to go cheaper, get the Remarkable 1. Because that was still kind of relevant back in the day. I feel like nowadays it's pretty irrelevant. Right. Unless you still have one, which is still a good device, but the battery life's nowhere near as good as the Remarkable 2, things like that. It's still micro USB versus USB-C, so it has some compromises, but my sister still uses hers and she likes it. But and then the other one, I was like trying to see what else was out there at the time, and I didn't know really anyone that even had a Remarkable back then, so I was like, let me just buy the books, Onyx books, and I think that's when they went more by the Onyx name, and now they go more by just the books name, right?
Yep.
And so I tried it, and it was cool, but I didn't feel like I needed both of those at the time.
Gotcha. Are you gonna go back to? I mean, that's amazing that you haven't.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around, especially because they release 100 devices every year.
I know, right? And off camera, I actually just tried. Jeff's Note Air 4C here, which has just been released. We were kind of messing around with the lighting and stuff, but it's a cool device. Like, I know you use it for like more of like a teleprompter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll use the origami stand, and I keep saying stand for some reason. I don't know why. Stand, and then I'll have it set up like this. I'll have Microsoft Word or PowerPoint depending on what I'm using, and then my notes will be there. So instead of a teleprompter, this is what I'm using. Basically.
So these are kind of the two vertical orientations, right?
Yeah,
you do it landscape
exactly.
Or that way.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
what?
This is the mode I prefer.
The top down,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's more like.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the camera like this, so my eyes don't have to travel as far down to see the screen.
Yeah. I feel like, do you use Space Desk a lot on here? or not much?
No, I did just because people asked about it.
Yeah, I think I clipped your video at one point to reference. I think what was I talking about? I was talking about laptop and e-ink integration. It was like how they can integrate.
Yeah.
And I think in the one where I talked about like these devices where you can use Space S, I like clipped your video. But that is actually probably the biggest reason I would maybe get a Note Air device.
As a monitor extender, or?
Yeah, as a monitor extender.
Okay.
And specifically, like, I know you do a lot of your editing probably on your beefy desktop up there.
Yeah.
I actually do a lot of my editing outside of the house.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I'll go to like the library, I'll go to a book coffee shop, just because like I do all my filming at home, and so like just to take a break from being at home, because I already work from home. And then I'm like filming at home, and then like just to like get out a little bit, I like to go edit elsewhere.
Got it.
And so I could perfectly see this like next to my laptop with Space Desk, and then just have my like bin folder of all the video files, which is like not something where you need like color accuracy, but then just I can just like throw stuff in. Or if I'm like while I'm doing a video, I need to like research something quickly, like pulling up an article where I can then read it on Eink versus reading on my laptop.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
I guess to my question then, like, how do you find the actual experience of using Space Desk on here? Is it decently smooth? I mean, it's still e-ink, so it's not going to be like zippy, but
Yeah, it's okay. I was impressed with it because I was surprised the technology
it even worked.
Yeah, and it was smooth enough. But you know, I'm a little different than a lot of people doing e-ink devices, and you're probably actually in the same camp where I don't have a problem with LCD screens.
Okay.
I'm good with that. I like e-ink because it's just great for reading and writing.
Yeah.
It's just great for that. But it's not because of a health reason or anything like that. So once I'm on my computer, I want a monitor. And I've got a big curved monitor, and it's perfect for that. So there was never any real utility.
Especially if you're doing like stuff where you need color accuracy, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be using e-ink
Right.
for video editing.
Yeah. And then the videos, are way better on an LCD and that sort of thing. So I had I test drove a Big Me had a all-in-one PC, so essentially a monitor. And
Was that like the B251? Are you talking about the big 27-inch monitor they had?
Yeah. And I
you did try that?
I did, yeah.
What do you think?
I bought it. I think
I
should not have bought it.
Was it for you?
Right.
Did you like return it, or did you?
No. I just it's in the garage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll find a use for it at some point.
Yeah. But so, you think, the e-ink technology is not really good enough for you to replace it as a monitor?
I would not even consider it.
Yeah.
And I love e-ink, but it's not an LCD monitor. I think a lot of people look to it because they have eye issues or whatever. It's questionable whether LCDs are actually damaging for eyes. And there's techniques you can use to, like looking away at just an object and focusing.
Was it the 30-30-30, where it's like every 30 minutes you look
Something,
30 feet away for 30
seconds, something like that. Yeah, there's techniques you can use. Now, I do believe there are people out there that have issues where the inks. I'm not saying that's not the case, but I'm just saying that's a very small minority, and it's not me.
Yeah.
So for me, having an ink monitor, it just made no sense at all. You see all the compromises. You see the slightly choppy mouse, and it's a little grainy because it was Kaleido 3, and it just wasn't for me.
I got you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, do you use like Google Docs on these, or like...
I don't. I use I have Microsoft Office 365.
Yeah.
So I've got the Android versions of the Office, and I'm just downloading. I'll type on my computer.
Yeah.
Or do the PowerPoint on the computer, and then I'll display using.
Okay. But you said you don't really use Techfolios, correct?
That's correct.
So are you using the Office 365 suite much, or not really that much?
Not on the device. I'm only displaying on the
Gotcha.
device. I'm not actually interacting with the
Oh yeah, so if you pulled up something that you're using for like the teleprompter notes or something, then you're using 365.
That's right.
Well, you're not,
I'm using the app. So
I'm
using.
typing into it.
I'm not typing into it. That's
I
right.
got you.
Yeah.
It was more for viewing.
That's right.
And I mean, that is a good use case just because the battery life's good on these, right? So
Yeah, it's great, and I can leave it up, and exactly.
Yeah. You don't have to constantly be like turning it back on, or like it's timing out or something.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So but As I said, I used it as my primary driver at work for a year. It was great. It's just that Supernote did it better, and so I moved on to Supernote. But Books are amazing devices. They're really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've definitely been ramping up the hardware, and I mean, in terms of specs, I think they're probably the most powerful ones, right?
Yeah, there's definitely up there.
Like RAM. This has micro SD too, right?
It does, yeah.
Storage as well.
Bigme's right with them in terms of the hardware aspects of it. It's the software aspects that just blows.
Also interesting where the USB-C port is placed here.
Yeah, that's
like middle on the top.
Right. It's okay. So let's talk about that. So we've got the Note Airs have it here on the side. You've got here on the top.
This has it on the bottom.
I didn't realize this, but people are super passionate about where they're charging.
They are, yeah.
So where do you stand on this important issue?
So I think actually, interesting enough for the Note Air,
yeah.
I think having it on the side is good for your use case, right? Because it'd be a little awkward for it to be on top. It wouldn't work if it were on the bottom, and it does work on the side.
If I were charging when I was using it.
But you're not charging.
I don't charge when I use it.
But if you had to.
If I had to, yeah, I guess that would make sense, yeah.
That's another thing. It's kind of a funny topic because the battery life on these is so good already that it's like the amount of times I'm charging it while I'm using it is pretty slim.
I never
It's
do
pretty
that.
slim. Yeah. It has happened, like I was on the plane and my mini AI paper was dead. So I just popped into the little port there and had it plugged in. And I think that one's on the top. So actually for that scenario it worked well because it was dropping down on the tray table, plug in right there.
Yeah.
And then the other day I was charging my Paper Pro from the almost like the ground here. And I think I do prefer the top in general. I think I do prefer the top. So it can get in the way a little bit when you're doing stuff.
If you're
using it while charging it.
I'm fine top or bottom. I don't like the side because in order to charge this, I have to open the flap.
That feels like a little.
So and that's a small thing, but
oversight.
yeah, I mean I don't know. I prefer it was either other side.
The top or the bottom.
Yeah.
Or even if it was like I don't know, like down here, like out of the way of the marker, but just on the open side of the cover, the folder. But yeah, no, people are pretty particular about that.
Yeah, it's amazing the passion around that, but
yeah, such a small little detail, right?
Exactly. Well, you know what? I think that sounds like a really good closing note, Vlad. Thank you very much. I've had a blast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
Good conversation. And there's a part one on my channel, so you can.
That's right.
It'll
be in the link in the description.
Yeah. Yep. And we can continue the conversation over there.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Okay, so that's it. That's our full conversation. Any comments or questions you have for either Vlad or I, please post those in the comments. Probably better to post questions for Vlad on his channel, and again, links in the description, and questions for me in my channel. But we'll get back to you one way or the other, depending on how you leave your comments. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and maybe we'll do this again sometime down the road. Until then, I'll see you next time.